Hey guys, Ryan Jimenez here. Day 3 of quarantine, and this is vlog 1. Today we're going to be talking about human abuse and violence. Let's get it. Violence is definitely a concern for nurses, and public health nurses will see evidence of violence in families and the effects it has on individuals.
Violence is generally defined as those non-accidental acts, interpersonal or intrapersonal, that result in physical or psychological injury to one or more persons. It's basically somebody hurting another person mentally and physically.
Okay guys, let's talk about some social and community factors influencing violence. There's quite a few, so let's get into it.
Work.
Hey, back over here.
What's going on?
Sweep right here.
I just finished sweeping.
Well, do it again. Dude, hurry up.
Hi, honey. How was work?
Not good. It was horrible. My boss is a jerk.
What did he do?
He's always bossing me around, being a jerk all the time.
Education.
You doing your work? Nerd. This is wrong anyways.
That was right.
Media.
Oh, damn it! Oh!
Organized religion.
Stop. I said stop. I said stop. No. I'm gonna spank you. You better stop. You know I told you that if I don't spank you when you do something wrong, that's spoiling you, and that's not good upbringing, so stop. Alright, that's it. You're gonna be spanked.
Population.
Can you move? Oh my gosh, I'm tired of living with so many people. There's no room. Oh my god.
Community facilities.
Go, 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 go! Oh, yeah! Interception! Good game, baby. Don't slap me.
Hey everyone, so I'm going to be discussing violence against individuals or to oneself. So the potential for violence against individuals, so this is going to include murder, rape, or assault, or to oneself, which this is going to include suicide. This is directly related to the level of violence in the community. So people that live in areas where there's high crime rates, they're going to be more susceptible to becoming victims than those that live in more peaceful areas. Homicide is defined as death resulting from the use of force against another person when a preponderance of events indicates that force was intentional. So for most homicides, they are committed during an argument by a friend, acquaintance, or family member. An alarming aspect of family homicide is that children may witness the murder or find the body of a family member. So these children are at great risk for mental disorders, self-harm, substance use, and complete suicide if older than 18 years of age. Women are 9 times more likely to be killed by an intimate partner than a stranger. And the intimate partner may be a husband, boyfriend, same-sex partner, or ex-partner. But the top risk factor for intimate partner homicide is previous domestic violence. So prevention of family homicide includes working with abusive families. So we as nurses have a duty to warn other family members the possibility of a homicide if severe abuse is present. Physical injuries and emotional cost of assault are equally important issues in both the acute healthcare system and the community. The difference between a homicide and an assault is only the response time and the quality of emergency transport and treatment facilities. The same community measures used to address homicide can be used to combat assault. So nurses must address the emotional trauma from these violent attacks. This can allow the patient to talk through their traumatic experience and make some sense of the violence. And we can also refer them to any further counseling if depression, anxiety, or any sleeping problems persist. Sexual violence is forcing a person to take part in a sexual act when the person does not consent, and this can affect health by causing both physical injuries and emotional harm. The best way to prevent sexual violence is to stop it before it begins. The CDC advocates strategies such as promoting social norms that protect against violence, teaching skills to prevent sexual violence, providing opportunities to empower girls and women, creating protective environments, and supporting victim survivors to lessen harm. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Suicides take a high toll on individuals, families, and communities. Leading risk factors for suicide are mental health, unintended pregnancies, and STDs, especially HIV. Also, these risk factors include depression and other mental disorders, substance abuse disorders, and intimate partner problems. Nurses can aid in reducing suicide and in caring for the victims at a community, family, and individual levels. Nurses can also help survivors cope with the trauma and make referrals to any counselors or support groups.
You know what this is? This is me sitting outside my door because there's a 2-year-old that won't stop. I've worked the ER for 18 hours straight for 3 days in a row with the COVID-19 situation. But you know, as a nurse, I had to take a break. I'm sitting outside my door just taking a breath because I know what the potential abuse that can happen due to the stress that's going on right now. As a nurse, I am a mandatory reporter of what I consider to be sexual abuse, child abuse, and family abuse. And I want to talk to you a little bit about it. Under these times right now, we're all stressed. People are out of work. I'm grateful for work. Everybody's cooped up in the house, but I'm sitting out here by myself trying to take a breather. Seeing the family members come in or not being able to come in with their loved ones is causing a greater stress on our community as a whole. And as a provider, I need to be able to recognize that. I need to be able to be that resource for a family member who doesn't recognize what abuse may be because it may be a norm in life. Family abuse can be anywhere from sexual abuse. Even if you're married, you say no, it's still sexual abuse and can be considered rape if you don't want to have sex and your partner makes you have sex. Emotional abuse can be insults, can be derogatory statements about your appearance, about your progress in life. And physical abuse is just that, where somebody actually lays hands on you and restricts you from anything that you want to be able to do. Even controlling money, keeping the car keys away from you so that you can't go, or following you when you do try to go out. Physical abuse spans across the board. It's not so much just family abuse. It's not just directed at a spouse. It can be directed at the elders in the family. It can be directed at the children of the family, the stepchildren of the family. And us as nurses, we have to know how to recognize it. Sexual abuse. Sexual abuse can happen in same-sex couples. It can happen in heterosexual couples. It can happen to elders. It can also happen to children. I think that's one of the most heinous crimes out there is sexual abuse of children. We as nurses need to be able to recognize, even if you ask somebody, they may not sit there and say, yes, I'm being abused. You need to be able to recognize the warning signs of sexual abuse and be able to provide a listening ear and resources for a patient and their family to be able to seek help. Sometimes the patient themselves may not seek help. It may be somebody that's near them that helps them gather the strength to do that. With child abuse, it's just not neglect. It's a conglomeration of things that we don't even think about. Withholding food from a child, withholding medical care, not providing them with means of having a clean bed, clean clothes, emotional affection, being able to hug a child, to be able to uplift a child. That can be considered abuse depending on the degree. And us as providers, we have to know that. Like I said, I have a 2-year-old behind that door and she is full tilt. She has been relegated to the house. She's been relegated to the yard, and that's about all we can do for her. And we need to be able to say what's okay and what's not okay. We need to be able to recognize the signs of it, and we need to do the warning signs early and do the interventions early into the situation. We don't want to sit there and see the child's come in with unexplained injuries where nobody can sit there and say, what happened to this child? We need to be able to sit there and say, why did this happen to this child? What can we do to help? Before it gets to be too late where we are seeing more heinous crimes to children. We also need to think about the emotional aspect. We're all under a ton of stress right now. A ton of stress just basically trying to keep our heads above water. There's a lot of people who need services out there that can't get services, that their money is so tied up right now or non-available because of the coronavirus. We need to think about that. We need to recognize these signs and symptoms and educate ourselves because the forms of abuse are always ever changing. So as a word to the wise, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves as mandated reporters, and we need to be able to recognize these signs and symptoms. Take care of yourself. I mean, that's what you can do so you can take care of others. Healthcare is never an easy job, but it can be very rewarding if you're able to help somebody stop the abuse. Thank you so much for your time.
It's Chelsea, and I'm going to talk to you first about intimate partner abuse.
So most domestic violence is committed by men against women, but women can also abuse their male partners or their female partners.
So intimate partner abuse is defined as threatened, attempted, or completed physical, sexual, or emotional abuse by a current or former intimate partner.
Battered women often have bruises and lacerations of the face, head, and trunk of the body. When a woman has a black eye or bruises about the mouth, ask, "Who hit you?" rather than "What happened to you?"
So women who try to leave an abusive relationship are at a significant risk for homicide. 39% of homicides of women in the U.S. are committed by an intimate partner. As a nurse, you need to know how to assess for intimate partner violence. So you can ask the following questions. Is somebody hurting you? You seem frightened of your partner. Has he or she hurt you? Did someone you know do this to you? Also, you want to ask, when did this happen to you and where did this happen to you? You want to write down what the person actually said and use quotation marks.
Approximately 3 to 8% of pregnant women are physically battered during pregnancy, with a larger portion, 20% of adolescents, abused during pregnancy than adult women. Although abuse during pregnancy occurs across ethnic groups, Puerto Rican, white, and African American women experience a significantly higher severity of abuse than Hispanic women from Mexico or Central America.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about elderly abuse.
It is often difficult to determine whether the injuries of elders result from abuse, falls, or other natural causes. Careful assessment through both observation and discussion can help determine the cause of injuries.
So as nurses, we want to know how to identify potential or actual older adult abuse. So you want to be alert for the following: financial mismanagement, withdrawal and passivity, depression, unexplained or repeated physical injuries, untreated health problems such as decubitus ulcers, poor nutrition, unexplained genital infections, physical neglect, and unmet basic needs, social isolation, rejection of assistance by caregiver, lack of compliance to health regimens. Okay, and that wraps up intimate partner violence and elderly abuse.
Hi, Mr. Baeza. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. My name is Emily. I'm your student nurse today. Hi, Riley. How are you? Good. Okay, well, I did her head-to-toe assessment earlier, and she's not quite hitting all of her milestones that I need her to be hitting. She's underdeveloped, and her growth and motor skills are not quite where I want them to be at yet, okay? So I wanted to go over with you ways we can improve her development. And if you have any questions or concerns, just feel free to ask me throughout this process, okay? She needs to be growing at least 2 to 3 inches per year. And her weight, she needs to be gaining about 5 pounds per year also. We need to help her with her confidence and her initiative. Her language and vocab needs to be progressing as well. And I can offer you resources to help with her vocab. And then read to her at home if you get a chance. That would also help her. Take her to the library if she's interested. Let her help with simple chores around the house. Encourage her to play with other children. And explain and show the behavior that you expect from her at home. Maybe she's not understanding something, so just explain it to her. Talk to her in complete sentences in grown-up words. Watch her at all times, even when she's playing outside. That's very important. Keep your child in the back seat with appropriate car seats. I know because she's smaller for her age, she would still need a car seat, you know, in the car. Eating healthy meals together. She sees you eating healthy, she'll want to eat healthy. Provide age-appropriate play equipment. Make sure she gets 10 to 13 hours of sleep per day. That's including naps, okay? And I know with the COVID-19 situation going on, I know you're under probably some stress at home, being with her all day. So I can go ahead and teach you stress reduction techniques. And that also includes having fun, enjoying recreation. Just revisiting maybe during her naps you can do something for yourself. Time for yourself will also help stress management, okay? Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, not at this moment.
Okay, so thank you all for coming in, and we'll go ahead and set you up with another appointment, okay?
Alright.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys. Bye, Riley.
Okay, bye.
Have a good day.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Hello. I want to talk to you about my assessment during this routine examination with my patient. I would look for signs of physical abuse, including abrasions, contusions, or any burns, physical symptoms related to emotional distress, presence of physical disability, social isolation, mental health problems, and any other signs or symptoms related to physical, sexual, or neglect. And so to keep in mind, our main priority is going to be safety, of course. If any signs of abuse were evident, I would refer the client to appropriate community organizations, and this includes Child Protective Services, Child Abuse Prevention Programs, Adult Protective Services, Wife Abuse Shelters, community support groups, and sexual assault programs. And so key points for interventions for this patient would be effective communication with abusive families. The behavior, not the person, must be condemned. Although it may be difficult to form a trusting relationship with abusive families, nurses can engage in acting as a case manager or coordinator